much more severe for Origen here. You know, a loss here puts them right back into that kind of that playoff pack of death that they don't want to be seeding in, so they can get a leg up. But for me, it's really about this abstract idea of who is the second best team in the LEC right now. I think there's arguments for 3 names. Vitality, because they hold the spot. Origen, because we keep hearing these rumblings about their final form. And an on-the-rise Fnatic. So Origen can make a statement here today.
They absolutely can. And for Vitality, I think they've got a really solid spot at the moment. In second place, they just picked up a win yesterday after subbing in Seiken for that middle lane. He looked solid for this team, but it sort of takes me into this match too, because you have 2 really strong teams fighting against one another and 2 very different ideas that they came in with in the draft. I think it comes down to how you actually want to play this map, and specifically the junglers trying to split it right down the middle.
Yeah, because kind of following up what the analyst desk was talking about, it's a very strong 2v2 top side of the map for Cabochard and Mowgli. You expect that they should own this with the Renekton and the Sejuani, whereas on the other side, Patrick having control of that firepower, having the Draven, means that Cold wants to spend a lot of his time getting that one going and snowballing it.
Exactly, and we're already seeing something new here. From the side of Origen, Cold is one of those players that's very smart in his early game pathing, and you almost never see a Rek'Sai start on a blue buff, but it's because he wants to path down for that bottom lane, because at level 3, level 4, there is so much kill threat here with the Draven Thresh lane.
And I think it's really important to kind of understand the different tempos that these drafts want to take place. You know, we have this idea of snowball, but when you look at the side lane hyper-scaling, the fact that there's a Vladimir versus a Renekton, I think that Origen can play this game a bit slower. They have a Vladimir, they have an Orianna, yeah, they have a Draven, so they have some bridges from where they can play early game to mid game to late game, whereas Vitality, it feels like their composition really does need to come online much faster. They need to take control of the game and play a very quick pace League of Legends.
And if you're Vitality looking for someone to take control of the game, you always look up towards that top lane. Cabochard has been such a key carry for this team. Last time the 2 teams met, he went 7-1 and 7, absolutely dominated the laning phase, and now you're giving him a strong laner in the form of Renekton.
Absolutely, and it's a strong laner that actually isn't going to be punished here, because usually you see Renektons against ranged matchups be sort of bullied around. Think the Kennen matchup, for example, but Vladimir, frankly, doesn't do a whole lot of damage in the early game, and because he's paired up with the Sejuani, which is such strong kill threat in the top lane with the stacking of Sejuani passive, you can see that Alphari wants to let the wave push into his tower, because Cabochard is sort of gonna have the run over this top lane matchup.
The one nice thing that I do like about Vladimir into Renekton, especially when you take the Sejuani into account, is that it's still really risky to dive him. Yeah, he's going to get bullied around, he won't have control of the wave, but he does have his pool that if they try to pull the trigger on the dive, he has some defensive options.
Mithy just got that blue buff right there. It was an early smite from Cold, and I think Mithy picked that one up with the play, so he's going to be pretty happy with that one right there, and denying that one from Mowgli.
Thresh got nerfed on 9.4, higher mana cost on the Q. Doesn't matter if you have blue, you can see Mithy spamming them out now. It's just free lassos for that Thresh in the bottom lane.
Exactly. The cooldown too, not going to matter quite as much here for Mithy in the jungle. We're going to get that picture-in-picture right now for Mithy.
Groups around the screen.
And yoink.
It's just an auto. It's just an auto. Just an auto for Mithy. It's strong to see OG getting that 3 buff early on, though. It sort of slows down that speed of play that Vitality can have. You slow down the jungler a little bit.
And it's also a completely different look for Vitality. Normally this is a team that like to have priority constantly forward in their lanes like Cabochard do, so they can open up Mowgli to blitz into the enemy jungle and play hyper-aggressive. But because Seiken lost the priority, because his bot lane lost the priority, really conservative pathing from Mowgli means that he is punished by getting 3 buffed.
Exactly, and I think that losing mid lane pro is the big takeaway here, and it just is one of those things that happens in this matchup. Orianna is a champion that we don't see a ton of usually as one of those safer picks, but she has really strong lane control early on, because she can sort of walk forward and bully you around with the wall without taking much return damage, because she can ignore the minion wave, while a champion like Zoe can't throw her spells through it.
And it's just props to Nukeduck for recognizing when he has the window that he can abuse an inexperienced mid laner in terms of the LEC stage. You know, making use of the fact that Zoe can't just auto-clear the minions right now. She needs more points in her abilities before she's able to match the push priority from Orianna. So Nukeduck's going to try to squeeze as much advantage out of this as possible.
And while Nukeduck is doing that, Mowgli is doing classic Mowgli things. He goes for the invade there, knowing that Cold was probably going to stick around bot side a little more. Go for that full clear, so he steals away a couple of those wolves and is now positioned for a play around this top lane.
I said Vitality wanted to play on the top side of the map, but Cold is here to answer. ready for the counter gank. Cabochard looking for that empowered Ruthless Predator, gets it onto Alfari. The stun coming out as well, but Alfari dodges it. Cold with the knock-up of Mowgli, but already both Origen members quite low. Second stun onto Cold. He just wants to get away from this one. It's a good counter gank from Origen.
This was so smart here from Colt. He knew the lane was pushing away from Alfari, so he steps back. He waits to come for the 2v2, but he knows him and Alfari both lose this 2v2 early on, so it's a very defensive engagement where he goes in to buy time for Alfari to get on out, but when he knows it's time to leave, he gets on out of dodge.
And ultimately, while he does protect Alfari to make sure that nothing more comes of that, he still is behind. There's vision on him when he moves over to his wolf camp, so Mowgli will get information, as well as getting the Scuttle Crab. So still a win overall for Vitality.
You also have to look at what camps are available right now, because Cold, he has nothing he can actually farm, while Mowgli just grabbed the Scuttle Crab after counter jungling those wolves. Now he has the Raptors as well as those Krugs to go ahead and pick up, and with Cold continuing to stumble across vision, now Vitality can sort of make a play on him.
Seiken gets a lot of damage down with the Paddle Star. Jackdaw is on his way up as well, but as soon as you hit the Paddle Star, Cold knows something's going on, so he's like, okay, I can back away from this one. Not going to get hit by that Sleepy Trouble bubble. I want to just take a quick look at exactly where the lanes are sitting. CS lead for Nukeduck in that mid lane. It's about even in the top lane, and bot lane is actually well in favor of Patrick here. We haven't actually seen the junglers do too much down towards that, but Patrick with the Kleptomancy is sitting on about a 200 gold lead already.
We do expect this to go in Patrick's favor, however. Again, he got the Draven. It's a very defensive bot lane between Attila and Jackdaw, and it kind of feeds into this larger idea that Vitality are one of the few teams in the LEC that kind of have figured out how they themselves win. You know, it feels like a lot of teams are still kind of throwing different strategies at the board, trying to figure out what happens for them. When you see a Misfits game, you're like, just carry through bot lane, just do it, and then they start to move things around, but they've pulled a lot of power out of Attila and Jackdaw, and they've just put them on defensive duty while everything goes into Cabochard and Jizuke when Jizuke is starting.
Exactly, and it's a formula that works. I mean, they've got 9 wins so far in the split, which puts them at a solid second place in the standings. Just right now, I don't think they've quite gotten as much as they usually would have liked to. You know, Mowgli and Cabochard typically really snowballing around that top lane, and the question arises is when Vitality play these slower games, it's Jizuke that steps up and carries in the mid to late game. Now, can Seiken have that similar level of performance to sort of match our expectations of Vitality?
But it should be a really easy call for Origen then, with the likes of the Orianna and the Vladimir, to just say, let's just absorb it. Let's just waste a lot of their time, and let's see if we can stall out Vitality and simply outscale them later on.
Because that's the thing for Origen. I think if you look across them, they've got 3 relatively good scalers in the form of the Vladimir, the Orianna, and the Draven. Vitality, on the other hand, I mean, I've played enough solo queue to know that Renekton tends to fall off as the game goes on. Zoe will always have strong burst, and the Ezreal is still pretty powerful, but you have to give the scaling advantage over to Origen.
Exactly. I think when you look at raw damage, OG by a mile win towards the later stage of the game. Where Vitality do have strength, though, is in their front line. You have very powerful tools to sort of buy space for your Ezreal and Zoe, but OG don't want to give them too much room here because Nukeduck and Cold are walking in to try and steal away this blue buff once again.
Nukeduck walked over a ward, eventually decides to start hitting that one. Sleep's going to land on him. Seiken could put a Paddle Star down, but didn't really know where Cold was. This is the blue buff invade, but Vitality are able just to dissuade Origen from going any further.
Yeah, Mowgli's been quite stubborn about giving up his strong side of the map. In fact, also...
No!
Oh, yeah! No, Mowgli just got it. Holy moly.
Yeah, Mowgli was really trying to donate that one over towards Seiken because he's been falling a little bit in this laning phase, just trying to use all of his spells to clear away the wave as he gets pushed in, but he's forced to smite it to stop the steal.
But that absolutely is a big deal because it means that you won't get mid priority against an Orianna that also has the blue buff, which is a huge pivot point that Nukeduck and Origen have, which is why Mowgli is here. He has to try to solve this lane and solve this problem.
Yeah, there's basically no mana on Seiken right now, so Mowgli shows up to push this one wave. The next wave won't be entering for quite a while, so Seiken can go ahead, get a reset off here, come back to lane with a lost chapter.
I was popping the ultimate here as Alfari trades onto him with the Hemo Plague. We'll just heal up. Ultimate for ultimate trade, it seems, in that top lane, and not really seeing that explosiveness that we expected from the top side of the map for Vitality, but also Cold on Rek'Sai, a champion that we talk about being strong from level 3 to 20 minutes in the game, hasn't really had that much of an impact either.
Yeah, he hasn't done a whole lot. Actually, mid lane, big trade here for Nukeduck.
Shockwave used on Seiken, he's still got the flash to try and get away. Nukeduck continuing to trade, the Ignite comes out, Seiken flashes forward, he's got the heal! Seiken looking for the pure 1v1 play here. Picks up the cleanse, doesn't land anything. Abyssal Voyage coming in from Jackdaw and Attila. They're just under the tower. That was not the place you wanted to go. I'll be honest.
Oh.
Whirling Death not quite going to connect either.
Oh man, Sagan really wanted that right there. Nukeduck.
No, wait.
Oh, I thought he had it.
It baited me.
Good play there from Sagan to end up escaping, and I mean, all of Vitality was on board with that play. The second Sagan was engaged on by Nukeduck there in the mid, you saw Till and Jack Troll both walking up, trying to get in there and finish off the kill. And now with no summoner spells on towards Nukeduck or Sagan, I'm looking in the next few minutes to see Cold or Mowgli go for a play around mid.
For me, it tells me that until those cooldowns are there, that we shouldn't have any plays that happen in the lane phase, which is why I feel like both junglers just immediately look towards the massive monster objectives, and Mowgli's like, okay, I've got control over the top side of the map, so the Herald is mine, whereas Cold is constantly cheating down to his strong side of the map, which is this bot lane.
Yeah, it's the common response here. Play towards your strong sides of the map. While they have been playing for both strong sides, they haven't been able to build up too much of an advantage, but I do really like the odds of Vitality playing around mid lane, because when you have a tool like Mowgli's Glacial Prison, I mean, Nukeduck has no way of escaping that now because you went for such an aggressive 1v1.
No cleanse, no ability to get away. You've got the Flash Prison as well that can come out from Mowgli. It's pretty easy to get that CC chain going into a sleep, and I do have to expect that Mowgli will be trying to pay some attention around that mid lane.
Yeah, so all eyes on Nukeduck. If we see it, surely Origen also see that there's just a massive target on their mid laner. So question for me, does Mowgli try to force the play into the bot lane? Or mid lane, does he try to dig out his bot lane? Or does he double down with the Herald on the top side for this Renekton?
Well, I think you have to start off by providing some coverage here for Sagan, now that Sagan is the one with the shove. He's also coming down into this bottom lane to clear away some vision and try to get a good reset here for Jack Troll, or just go in.
Lantern comes out, there's the prison, but there's a cleanse for Patrick. So it's the ultimate burn, and then the cooldown coming out from Patrick.
See, I'm actually not a big fan of this play from Mowgli. I think he accomplished what he needed to do before he shot out the ultimate. He had the priority here for Attila and Jack Troll in the bottom lane. They got the plate, they could have backed away. Now without the ultimate, Mithy wants the hook, and Mowgli won't have that cooldown to have a big impact in a 3v3 or a fight around the mid lane.
Both junglers just showing that they are around, but not really expecting to do too much here. Team's still very even. It's so strange when we talked about, you know, sides of the map and how the map would be split, when actually across the board, it's pretty much even. A bit of a CS difference in that mid lane, kind of to be expected when you have a veteran in the form of Nukeduck against someone like Saken who hasn't been able to get those blue buffs. But across the rest of the map, the gold is pretty much equal.
And frankly, it's because Mowgli has refused to give an inch. Like, early game, he was getting bullied out, he lost his early blue buff, and even though he didn't have a strong side on that bottom, he returned to his bot side jungle every single time. He wasn't just going to double down into the Renekton, who's constantly had this wave forced under Alfari, and maybe he just makes the decision that, you know, we can't dive the Vladimir at this point. He's got too many points in his Q, so the cooldown's too low, he has access to his W, and so he's just trying to even out the map.
Exactly, and this sort of goes back to Mowgli's own personal style, which is less about necessarily the heavy ganking and more about winning those small battles, getting the CS leads by counter-jungling his opponents. The Raptor camp he just took a little bit ago was the second one he's stolen from Cold so far this game. It's just now these trying to group up around Saken and gain some control over the river.
Both teams just playing around the vision as much as possible. You've seen a litany of wards from Vitality around here. Control ward on either side. Rift Herald used. Cabashot's on his way down as well. Origen have to react. These turret plates are going to go down pretty quickly with that Rift Herald. Need to walk up just a bit quicker because only about 20 seconds left. Shockwave only hits onto one, clears out the minions. There comes the Rift Herald. Takes down a few plates. The sleep's going to land here as well. Patrick joins the fight. True Shot Barrage hits onto Nukeduck. Attila tanking up the tower. The Rift Tower's still there as well, but the tower will not go down yet. Saken still jumping forward with the portal. They won't be able to get too much.
That's a beautiful plate gank right there from Vitality to bring all 5 members not looking for any type of engagement, but just getting 4 plates right there in the mid lane to even up the gold across the board.
It's also just so punishing, even though they didn't have the, or as soon as the creep wave wasn't in front of Origen, the fact that it's an Ezreal as well as a Zoe, they're just free shooting at Origen underneath these towers. Fish in a barrel and massive damage across the board.
And now you definitely expect them, with how they've been playing this game, to come to the mid lane relatively soon to try and break that tower, because they've got really good vision control around that area of control wards in both buffs around this mid lane as Attila snags away that red buff. And with that turret being so low, if Vitality want to snowball this game, get it going quickly like we know they want to do, that's going to be one of the next moves for them.
Still no cleanse on Patrick here, but they do know that Mowgli is in that bush, playing very safely underneath their tower. Attila has just stolen away that red buff. Hook only hits a minion. Cold, you can see, waiting for the counter count. Both these junglers have had the other man's number this game.
This is concerning now for Vitality if they were to continue, because Nukeduck was the first person to move out of the mid lane, so they will end up backing off, and it's once again no play here, as at 15 minutes still neither team has a kill.
They've actually delayed their back. They're playing Ring Around the Rosie with Origen right now. Origen thought that Vitality are back, and they were actually trying to make a quick rotation into mid lane to try to force some pressure back onto that tower. But now that Jack Troll and Attila have revealed themselves to force in the wave, it finds Origen dead in the water and pulls them back to the bottom lane.
I'm just so surprised and in awe of the amount of vision control we've had this game as well. The amount of times we see Cold spotted out on 4 or 5 wards as he goes through his jungle path. Even these like sneaky ones that are just over wards where they wouldn't usually get spotted by a control ward. And then Origen think, oh, it's fine, we've got these control wards in the river, but the vision from Vitality is just that step deeper.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to see how these teams play around their pressure points on the map, right? And you can see whenever they do have pressure, they put down the vision. These wards are all sort of, you know, after the fact, and when they pushed that mid lane with the Rift Herald, they gave them a lot of ability to play around this area on the map. There's good news, though, for Origen that Nukeduck has both of his summoners back and available, and means that Origen can be a little bit more confident playing around the cooldowns of Mowgli's ult.
He is between buys, however, if you look at his itemization comparatively to the completed Luden's Echo from Seiken there.
I think you have to remember as well, like, it feels like there's a bit of tension in this game. There's a little bit of maybe anxiety from the two teams as well. They're playing very well around each other. But you have to remember how close the two teams are in the standings and how much a win, especially for Origen, would mean to them.
I feel like things are going according to plan. In Vitality's camp, again, they want to make the game go a little bit faster. They want to force plays, and so you see Mowgli constantly looking for opportunities, trying to be very proactive on the map, playing the vision war game while he's looking for picks, whereas on the other side, Origen, again, are just trying to absorb, play reactively, play a control style. It's much more about figuring out, tracking where Mowgli is, and then reacting appropriately to stay away from him.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you have your eyes on Mowgli here too, because Patrick, slowly but steadily, has been building up that bounty, 550 gold here on the Draven, and should be looking to cash in on that as soon as possible. The worst possible thing to happen to Origen now would to see him fall down in the next few minutes before he can cash in on that. But now my eyes turn towards Vitality because they finally knocked down this mid lane turret. This is actually the tool that's going to give them the ability, I think, to start to push down that mid lane and rotate. But Jack Troll, he's caught.
Well out of position, has the flash, has the exhaust. Is he going to try and get away? Pops the thick skin, looking for the flash.
Cashed in.
This is not your solo queue game today, Jack Troll.
Mithy catches out the young blood for the first blood.
The latest first blood of the split as well, coming in at 17 minutes 30 seconds, 5 minutes later than our previous first blood.
And unfortunately, again, it's the Vitality bot lane that just step out of position and are punished because they had just taken down the mid lane. Vitality are saying, okay, now we'll have priority of the mid lane. We can use this as the pivot point to secure the Mountain Drake. But Jack Troll gets caught.
Did the same thing exactly last game. You can see Jack Troll, I'm actually not sure why he's stepping here, why he's running back in towards the river, maybe trying to go group up with his mid laners, but that is just poor positioning here from Jack Troll, and it is Patrick that cashes on 1,083 gold. This man is huge!
Gone from a finished Bloodthirster to a straight finished Infinity Edge.
Okay, this is why this is devastating. Yes, there are hyperscaling tools for Vitality's composition on the likes of the Ezreal, but again, it's mostly a mid-game tempo comp, and when you have a Draven that is this far ahead of the clock now, if Vitality are ever trying to skirmish or fight when Draven is in the fight, you basically lose all tempo. Now Origen can match that and also have the side lane advantage.
Right now it's Mowgli walking here towards Alphari. Alphari has the ultimate, has all of his cooldowns, but Cold, his recall goes through.
Alphari has his Zhonya's now as well, though, so tower diving of Vladimir like that is so dangerous.
Now watch Jack Troll. He has the Abyssal Voyage. They can bring 4 members toward this top lane. Alphari also has the teleport. Mowgli's gonna go in.
There's the Abyssal Voyage. Good call on the end. Alphari stunned up, pops the Hemo Plate, goes into the pool, has flash, will flash away, gets to the Lantern as well. Seiken flashes forward, picks up a flash of his own, gets hooked back. Nukeduck and Cold here for the answer, but Seiken will use that flash.
And meanwhile, Draven is just cashing in everything on the bottom lane. He does trade the tower back. He gets free EXP and free gold.
Vitality using a lot right there to catch out Alphari, but with the defensive itemization and the assistance of Mithy, he's able to escape. And it's a big cooldown lost there for Seiken. He flashed forward to try and finish off the kill, but didn't expect Mithy and the rest of OG to be that close behind.
20 minutes in, it feels like the speed of the game, the pace of this game has just intensified that little bit more. About 2,000 gold between the two teams. Only that single kill sitting on Patrick, but we are seeing these first, second completed items. Ludens on both of our mid laners. You've got the Proto Belt now on Alfari as well, and Cabochard sitting on a Black Cleaver and a Tiamat.
And you have the double Kindle Gem power spike for Cold.
That's a jungler spike.
Thank you, Berlin.
That's a mistake.
Is that a mistake?
Yes.
Okay, this is what you need to explain to us then. Why is that purely a mistake? Why could he not be building 2 Kindle Gem items? Are there not 2 Kindle Gem items you'd want to build?
Nope. They also, I mean, you're going Black Cleaver, right? And then you're probably going G8. You're not going to be using that second Kindle Gem. He definitely just clicked on it too many times.
Well, that is a
Anyone
mistake.
gonna take that blue buff?
Seiken's on his way. There
Thank
we
you.
are. He gets it. He gets it. Okay, so next steps for these two teams. We talked about how Origen are pretty happy to scale across the board. Can they still just say, okay, we'll sit in lanes, we'll do this normal laning phase allocation and just start going for that next rotation of towers, or do they need to do something else?
I mean, it's going to be pretty formula from here. You know that once your bot lane tower is down, you rotate around and you just have your little cannon ADC because he's strong. He's got the Infinity Edge. He has the Bloodthirster. Wherever he is, he just gets an escort service and take free towers. And wherever he is, Attila cannot match him at this point. The Draven just has kill pressure and will just win this isolated 1v1.
And the biggest concern now for Vitality is the fact they're being forced to play around their bottom lane. Because Patrick is so strong, because he can build such a large advantage, seemingly just by himself, they need to bring everyone up here, and it nullifies the power of this Renekton, who's at level 13 and still done pretty much nothing.
And all Origen need to do is be patient, because again, they cover the power spike that Vitality should have with how fed their Draven is. So I'm curious, do Vitality get desperate? Where are they going to try to break this game? Because they are on a timer, and I feel like it has to be around Cabochard.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it almost comes down to this Baron buff, right? Because Vitality do have a lot of good tools to try and poke out some members. Mowgli does manage to get away, but if you can control the vision, I like where their control wards are at right now. You can try to use this Zoe and use this Ezreal to get more of an advantage, but it just does not work when your top lane is getting smashed in by Patrick, and it opens up so much room now for OG to enter into the Vitality jungle.
You can even see like Vitality leaving Attila to a side lane, actually using Jack Troll to keep Seiken a little bit safer in this mid lane. Nukeduck has had that Zoe's number throughout the course of the game and continues just to press that advantage as much as possible. Vision control for Origen is here. But again, Vitality have snuck a few of these wards in. They can see what Origen are doing.
And now while Origen have control, right? You know, oh, wait a second, Mithy gonna be okay. But Origen, they do have control. They have the lead. They have so much gold on Patrick. And here's where I think it actually gets really hard for them to close out the game with the composition they have. Because if you look at it, there's no great front line. There's no really solid initiation tools for them to go in. And even if you do land something like the hook, Jack Troll can just gobble up whoever it is that gets caught out of position and get away. So Origen have to play very, very smart and actually figure out a way to sort of bait Vitality into a fight where Origen will have a winning position.
Lure them, if you will. I do agree that not having the strongest engage tools, it would have been nice to have a Jarvan, a Sejuani, a Galio even, because like you're saying, they're pretty much entirely reliant on non-committal CC like the Death Sentence or the Shockwave. Which, never want to use your Shockwave, it's non-committal CC.
Yeah, that hurts.
That's true. That is definitely true. I want to talk a little bit about that side lane, though. We keep saying, you know, Vitality should play around the Cabochard if they can manage to make plays there. But it feels to me that Alfari is slowly getting towards the point where he can deal with that 1v1 pretty effectively. You know, you've got Zhonya's, you've got Protobelt, you get a Spellbinder on top of that. Is that the point where the Vladimir really starts to overtake the Renekton?
Yeah, I mean, I think once you have just enough AP, you can really start to press your advantage in the side lane.
What I'm asking, Andrew, is how much is enough AP?
How much is enough? Well, honestly, if I'm looking at it, I don't think you should be able to actually kill this Renekton in the side lane. You have a lot of good tools, just sort of go even with him. Where I think that Alfari is going to be strongest is when he does finish off the Rabbit on Zethcap, and you just use him as a flash initiation, not as an initiation tool, but he flashes into the backline, just unloads tons of damage onto the likes of Seiken or Attila.
Now, one of the thorns in Origen side, however, is the fact that they cannot crack this mid lane tower. They're still dealing with a ton of wave clear coming out of this Zoe right now, and so they're trying to get creative about how they problem solve dropping this so they can play around Baron, and it does start with a pick.
Cold maybe caught out just a little bit. Mowgli coming in from the side as well, but both teams will just back away, and you can still sense that tension. You can cut it with a knife between these two teams. Origen looking for their 8th win of the split. They kind of just silently been rumbling towards the top of the table.
Look at Patrick.
I've looked at Patrick.
He's pretty far up, but he's got the Thresh behind him.
Yeah, Mithy just has to, like, again, escort, saving Private Patrick.
Saving. It's like, excuse me, is that Sheriff? No, it's Patrick. It's like, that's who.
I don't get it.
It's probably before your time, young man. Probably. But yeah, I want to come back to that point about, you know, Origen looking, quietly rumbling towards the top of the table, slowly picking up these wins. Last week they had a bit of a weak performance with 0-2, but once again, if they win this game, you know, they're 8-6. They're matched with Splice. They're locked in that 3rd sort of tied spot.
And again, it's this idea that we kind of have this idea about how strong Origen is. You know, you hear those whispers, you hear those rumblings, you talk to a lot of the teams, and they all rate Origen very highly. But outside that big G2 victory, you haven't found the consistency or kind of the flashy play that you really wanted to out of this squad. But just watching them, they play such suffocating League of Legends. They're a very intelligent, meticulous team. And in a best of one, I don't think that gives them the room to really shine. Whereas if they make playoffs or secure their playoff spot, then I think in a best of series, that's when Origen become very terrifying.
Exactly, and not just, you know, the strategies and the way they play the game too, but you have to look at things like Nukeduck's champion pool and their ability to play many, many different champions, to play very different styles based on the drafts they actually go up against. Whereas I look at Vitality and, you know, maybe there's some flexibility, but they have a strategy that works for them, and that's fantastic because no one's really been able to stop them doing it too consistently. So Vitality definitely going to be sticking with that for the time being.
And we heard it from the desk. You now see it on your screen. The champion ocean that Nukeduck has under his wings, I'll say. 13 unique picks.
It's no paltry matter to play that many champions. So I want to have a quick look at a couple of these itemization choices that have come out, because there's a couple that interest me. Firstly, Blade of the Ruin King is the 3rd completed item on Attila. We do see this from time to time, but a lot of Ezreal's recently been going for the Seraphs instead. Mowgli called out here. Patrick starts to open up, takes the lantern away. And I think we will be allowed to talk about the items in just a second once again.
I mean, first I just gotta say, that was so slick there from the OG bot lane. I mean, Patrick knows that Mowgli is walking up there. Mithy lands the hook, throws out the lantern so they can get a lot of poke damage down on towards the Vitality jungler. But I do like that you brought up the itemization, because I think it speaks to the way Vitality want to play this game. You know, Attila could go for the double tier build. That's much more scaling. He has to wait a little bit longer before it fully comes online. But with the Blade of the Ruin King, you can see the Vitality want to force fights, and he wants to be able to combat against the damage that a Draven deals at this point in the game.
We also see the Spear of Sojourn coming out on the Renekton. We just don't see this item that often, so I want to bring a bit of attention to it. Of course, getting that extra auto attack speed, the extra attack speed and the extra cooldowns when you use your ultimate can be so effective on someone like Renekton.
Exactly, and it has the effect that the old Essence Reaver had before the sort of marksman item reshuffle and update. And what that means is he's going to have really strong dueling ability, because when he presses that ultimate, all of his auto attacks start reducing the cooldowns of his base abilities. And if you know Renekton, you know that his W is sort of an auto attack reset. He gets to unload a lot of those, so his cooldowns become very, very low, and it gives him a much better chance of combating against Alfari in a 1v1, or even just team fighting, getting extra sustain off of the Fury on his Q.
Yeah, that's the question for me, is this going to be enough to allow him to have pressure in that side lane and open up more options for Vitality, because they are a team that really do like to split up the map normally in their playstyle. But again, it's kind of been this back and forth for the last 5 minutes. I still think that the big thorn in Origen side is that this mid lane tower is still up. It gives Vitality easy and early access into rotating into the Barren River every single time. And with the likes of the Zoe and the Ezreal, they are so punishing around that pit. But the time is ticking. The itemization breakpoints are coming out of Origen's comp. Alfari's a ticking time bomb. Draven is pretty much exactly where he wants to be now, having the rapid fire cannon. He hits one axe, he's going to half health a squishy member.
Yeah, and as we get further and further into the game, you know, we keep saying we favor the scaling, the damage that Origen get as they continue to complete these items. But I can never discount a Zoe in a composition, because her ability, hold that thought.
Just looking for a single catch here. The heal comes out from Seiken, trying to keep Jack Troll alive. He still has the flash though. The hook. Oh, immediate cleanse there from Jack Troll. Does have to burn a single summoner, but Nukeduck burnt a cleanse of his own.
Now Vitality gonna be forced out of the jungle there as a True Shot Barrage gets a little bit of damage right there, and Cabochard is able to access this turret in the bottom lane, but it brings us back to this discussion around the split push, because so far, Cabochard hasn't been able to do nothing. Alphari's been able to sort of nullify his pressure.
I actually really like this call because when you have Zoe and Ezreal, you can leave the Baron alone and poke them off to commit Mowgli down here.
Alphari back underneath the tower. Didn't get stunned up in time.
Because it's huge. It's low risk, high reward. Because if you're able to kill Alphari down there and transition to a tower, these three should be able to hold the Baron.
Nukeduck has a perfect blank here, though. Mythy gets the hook in. Looking for Nukeduck's shockwave, doesn't have it up. That ultimate not available. Teleport coming in now. Mowgli actually caught out Nukeduck unawares, has to flash away. Cabochard still looking for the chase. Teleport in behind Vitality as well. Origen needs to re-engage his fight because otherwise it's all on Alphari by himself. Goes in, hits 16. The hero play. Here comes Patrick, the whirling death. Runs its way through Vitality. That's one down. Cabochard goes. Seiken shortly to follow, and Origen find the perfect team fight around the Baron.
So much damage there on the flank from Alphari. Mowgli is chunked, Attila is out of the fight, and Origen have complete control over this objective. It took us 30 minutes, guys, but finally Origen pulled the trigger, and they got the big win.
And boom goes the time bomb. There's level 16 Vladimir, that's 3 points in the ultimate. It is going to hit like a truck, and it melted through Vitality there. That was what they needed. They now have the Baron. The mid lane tower will fall over, and Origen should be in complete control.
And you can see Vitality off the resets. They're trying to run over and scramble for an objective with this Infernal Drake, but there's 5 members of Origen on the way, and they're going to make sure Vitality have no chance.
Origen have been so in control of this bottom side of the map. They've already got 3 dragons to their name. Vitality are trying to stop them getting this 4th.
I'm going to go one step further. Origen have been in control pretty much this entire game, outside some cheeky plays from Mowgli to try to plant his feet and say, no, this is my jungle. I will not let you create a strong side of the map. Origen have completely controlled every facet of this game.
They absolutely have. They knew they had the scaling as well, and it's 3 members of Vitality caught out. There was no Mowgli, there was no Cabochard. They were delayed in this fight, but it's not until Vitality overcommit, they step forward here to back up their front line, that the teleport comes through from Alphari. And watch this man, he loops all the way around, gets a full channel on the E into the Hemo Plague, and all of the damage just rips through the rest of Vitality as Patrick comes in to clean up shop.
Good stuff all around from Origen. I thought for a second they were too split up to retake the fight, but Alphari showed us why his name is always bandied around in those top laners in the European LCS. Now Origen, a 5,000 gold lead, 32 minutes in. They have the Baron sitting on them as well. It looks like Cold is going to be the one to push down towards this bottom side. It seems to be a 1-3-1's been enacted.
Now the one advantage that Vitality do have here is they still have an abundance of wave clear, and they have very safe wave clear on their composition. And we talked about how Origen don't have a lot of hard engage tools. Again, the rapid fire cannon, if he hits one person with the axe, that's all you need, half health someone. But it's really on to Vitality to engage into Origen, to pick the fight. So Origen should be able to say, okay, we're probably going to get an inhib, or that's what we want. But unless Vitality fight them, it's very hard for them to force that.
It definitely is, but Origen right now, you can see they're sort of splitting up the map. They have Cold splitting down in the side lane on the Rex side, Alphari as well up top lane, building up, double stacking that way for the maximum pressure. But Vitality have 5 members around the mid lane, but can they pull the trigger? I don't think so.
I really like this split though, because Cold can join the fight so quickly. Patrick cleanses away immediately out as Mowgli went for the engage.
And without that huge ultimate here from Vitality, it gets even more challenging. You have to be relying on a sick bubble here from Seiken, but with now these Baroned up minions whacking on the towers, Cold doesn't even have to do anything except sit here and keep the buff on top of them.
The more I watch Origen, the more they seem like the silent assassins of the LEC, the team that lies in wait, that are patient, that are methodical, and then eventually just strike and take you down. Of course, we have to remember Vitality playing with a substitute mid laner today, but Origen continue to go from strength to strength.
It does feel like you don't want to take everything away from Vitality because it's not the full roster, although I don't think that this game was Seiken's fault at all. But at the end of the day, both teams played well, one team played better.
And Cold is still in the bot lane, they want to go in.
A bit of voyage from Jackdrop, but it's just out of the fight straight away. The sleep lands though, Alphari down as well. It's a 1-4 trade support for top laner, and now we'll see if Origen want to keep pushing forward because Cold's still down towards that bottom side. Mythy goes to sleep, Seiken there, landing the paddle starts from long range. Attila jumps forward, but the redemption's enough to heal Mythy. Mowgli jumping now. There's the shockwave though, it hits up to 2. Patrick's going to turn this one around. Look at the Draven. The axes are spinning and Vitality are falling into their graves. Mowgli lands the long-range glacial prison. Seiken forced off towards the bottom side, but Cold's going to keep chasing them out. And now this will be 3 inhibitors for Origen. You have to feel they're looking for the base.
Cold is still looking for it. Seiken trying his best to hold on, and it's just Attila. It's just Mowgli trying to hold on. Both towers go down. What can they do?
Game by game, kill by kill. It looks like Origen are realizing their true potential. Mowgli trying to do what he can. can to stop Patrick, but you just can't do enough. Patrick landing the axes into the back of Vitality, into the heart of Attila, and Origen will take down Vitality.